Hello, welcome to Money and Impact. My name's Suzanne Caldera. I'm a mortgage lender. I've been a lender for the past 23 years. So why the title Money and Impact? I've been dealing with money throughout my whole career, for people figuring out how they're going to find money for their next home purchase to how they budget and everything in between, and then impact. I've been so lucky to have met people that have impacted me both professionally as well as personally. And today I have someone that is a lot more on the impact, but also on the money. And I think you're going to be excited to stick around and listen to this episode with Connie Stowers of Here Realty.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I am delighted. I was stoked today that I was going to get to sit with you. Your energy, everything about you is just so magnetic, and all the success and everything that you've been having, it's definitely.
Thank you.
I mean, it's made an impact on me, and it's getting me to the point where I think I may start my stuttering. So, you recently lost a ton of weight and went through, quite a journey.
Yep.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah. I think 2020 was an eye-opening year for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And for me, it really opened my eyes up to how quickly life can change. And I just had this awakening that I wasn't living my purpose. I was living the life that everyone told me I was supposed to live, right? I went to school, I went to college, I got good grades, I came out, got a job, met a man, had a wedding and a baby and a house. And I did all these things that everybody said that was the right thing to do. But it really left a big hole in me because it wasn't really in line with what I felt I had a purpose for. So unfortunately, my marriage ended in that time. But from that, I decided I cut out alcohol out of my life, which was a big change. And when I took that factor out, it gave me a whole lot more time to focus on myself and heal just some things that had gone on that I just hadn't healed. And so with that came tremendous weight loss, really just from, I think, a lot of self-love. From moving my body more, I started roller skating, which has been like the biggest change in my life, which is cool. So I added in roller skating, I added in a lot of therapy to really heal my trauma. That allowed me to hone in on just how I had used food for a long time as a coping mechanism. I noticed that when I was upset, the fridge door was opened. If I was happy, the door was closed. Like, wow, there's a correlation here. And then that transpired into my professional life, where I was taking such good care of my body and my mind and myself. It allowed me the time to invest in myself and become an entrepreneur, which is something that I had always felt was so out of reach for me because I was a corporate girl, I got a job like everyone told me to do. And so the last couple of years, I'm down 90 pounds. I've been sober for 2 years. And life is just a totally different world these days than it was 3 years ago.
How did you find that courage to leave that corporate security?
It was tough. It was really scary. And there were times where, a year out when my bank account got very, very low, and I was almost at the end where I just didn't know if I was going to make it. I think the courage came from taking a look at how I felt every day and really getting in tune with the anxiety I felt from getting up to going to a job that was not serving me, and the kind of pressure that put on me on a daily basis to try to find other ways to fulfill my needs. And so when I sat down and looked at it, and I thought to myself, I've never failed at anything I've tried, but I've never tried to do anything that was just for me. I'll go work for you all day, and I'll do everything in my power to make you successful, right? But when it came to, will I do that for myself? Well, that was like a whole other thing. And so I sat down and I looked on paper to see what did I need to do financially to live if I cut down all my expenses. And I looked at that number and I thought, I can do that. I can make it happen. It was hard. And I think with anybody who comes from a corporate lifestyle to go into the entrepreneurial route, they didn't teach us in school how to be an S Corp, when to become an LLC, what taxes, what's a tax write-off and what's a write-off for you here, and how can you kind of, structure your business to be, the most efficient and profitable. And so that learning curve has come over the last couple of years, but to pull the plug and just say, hey, I'm going to jump and we're going to hope to God this parachute opens. It's just a leap of faith. Like, you just have to have faith in yourself that you're not going to fail.
When you did do that, were you still drinking? Were you still
I was,
numbing?
Yeah, and I think what happened was, especially because I left my job in June of 2021, and I separated from my husband in August of 21. And with so much change, I really found myself heavily relying on that glass of wine at the end of the night, which was really like a bottle and a half, right? Like, it's one, but we'll just open up the second. And so that, until about December, January, I decided, well, maybe I got to slow down, because how am I gonna, I've got a girl at home, and on the nights I didn't have her, it was just so easy to kind of drown my sorrows away, or go out for the night and not think about things. And so it wasn't until I really started to do some deep kind of self-work and understand that I was numbing myself so that I didn't have to feel the pain that I was going through. And if I continued to do that, there was no way I was going to end up successful at the end of that. Maybe on paper, maybe on paper I could fake it. But as a person, there was no way I was going to come out on top, not physically, not mentally, not emotionally, if I kept drowning my sorrows in a drink.
Did you go through any grieving process when you said goodbye to the alcohol?
Yes, and I think there's probably still some of that goes on, right? I was the life of the party for a long time, and I got invited to all the events and all the parties, and everyone loved to have me around because I was a good time. And so I really had to figure out who I was without that. And that's been a journey all in itself. My therapist asked me that one time, like, well, who is Connie if she isn't Showtime, right? If she's not the life of the party, who is she? And that was, I was kind of taken aback, like, well, I don't know, who am I without that? So there was definitely a period of grieving. And I think after that, though, there was a period of grieving over all the things I could have accomplished if I had stopped earlier. That was, I think, even more so of a moment of, wow, look at how much you've accomplished in 2 years of sobriety. What could you have accomplished if you did this 10 years ago? And so I try not to get too lost in that, because I look at where I am today, and I never would have been here if I didn't have everything to come back from. How could I have ended up here, right? Like, I had to fight those battles to get to this place.
One of the things that I've admired with your journey, and I'm a big fan, is you have videos of when you first started skating, and you were a lot heavier, and you were awkward, and you're falling, and you couldn't do your split, or maybe you did do your split, but you look all kagats. Did you do that intentionally, or was that more so to just figure out, like, hey, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A friend of mine, her and I are so close now. We met through roller skating, and she said to me recently, she said, I'm not going to lie, when a few of us saw you at the rink when you first came, she said, I thought, what is that girl doing? Like, why is she recording herself? They felt bad for me, right? They kind of had pity on me, like, what's she doing? Like, I mean, I was almost 300 pounds. I'm on roller skates. Looking back, this is the most common position I'm in. And I was recording a lot of moments in my life at that point, ugly crying in the car, and even self-videos of me talking to myself on what I was going through. And it was really because I knew that someday I'd come out of it, and I knew that I needed to see where I came from to appreciate where I was. And so there was definitely like a method to my madness of, I also wanted to show people that just because you're heavier or you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life shouldn't stop you from trying things. And so, and the funny part is, when I was looking at those videos back then, I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. I was okay. Now I'm like, oh my God. But I wanted people to know that even though I was in this heavier body that really didn't feel like mine at all, because I gained that 100 pounds in a year. From 2019 to 2020, wow. I gained 100. COVID pregnancy, medications, the works. And so this body felt so foreign and alien to me that in my mind, I was still this like very nimble and active, athletic woman. And so it's almost like I had reverse body dysmorphia, where like I would look in the mirror and see me and feel like, oh, okay, I look good today, And then I'd see me on film and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's not what I looked like in the mirror, but I got it, it's fine. So there was some intention behind there to say, future Connie needs to see where she came from, to know how far we've come, because you can forget sometimes.
Yeah, and it can be a dark place having struggled with addiction.
Yeah.
A long part of my life and giving up alcohol. It almost does become your identity in a way, and you have to find those new pieces of you.
Yep, and not only your new pieces, but when you take alcohol out of the equation, you realize how much alcohol is ingrained in our everyday, in every event or your social life. There is always some element, if you're not in an alcohol-free community, there's typically some element of drinking, and we've associated fun with drinking. So you probably get this, but one of the most common questions I get is, what do you do for fun?
Yes.
I have the most fun life I have ever had right now because I have had to find what I do for fun. I didn't have hobbies before. I had nothing other than I like to go out and get a drink, or I like to go out and party, or I like to go out and dance, but we're drinking while we're dancing. And now, like, I was golfing the other night. I went to the skate park this week. I roller skate. I sing. I'm going back to the studio next week to sing a little bit. Like, you just get forced into this mode of, I don't know, what do I do for fun? That's a great question. Let me find out. What's
Have
fun.
you had to say goodbye to some people that maybe were in old Connie's life and shouldn't be on the bus now?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what comes with, I think, when you change your lifestyle in such a drastic way. I have a group of friends who are wonderful, and they still invite me to everything, even though I don't drink anymore. And they were, they are a group of friends who we love to get together and party a bit. And I'm very appreciative that they still invite me to everything, and I can still show up and have a good time. But there were other friends that, to be honest with you, what's interesting is the friends that I lost, the alcohol wasn't something that kept us together, but I think the alcohol kept me in a mindset that kept me at a lower vibrational energy. And when I came out of that and started to elevate my thought process and just the life I wanted to live, those people didn't fit my new lifestyle, because they actually weren't drinkers at all either. But my lifestyle changed so drastically that it just, I saw myself kind of going this other way. And they weren't joining in, they were still where they were. And that's a big part of when you make big life changes. And there's a period where you really feel very lonely, like you feel like you're on your own. And you are, right? You are on your own. You can have 1,000,001 friends that you can pick up the phone and talk to. But when it comes down to your healing journey, there is no one else who's going to save you. Like, you have to save yourself. And so I had to get really comfortable with that. And now this year, which is like I'm coming from years 2 and 3 of sobriety, I've started to form and build some really beautiful friendships, you being one of them, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've started to bring people into my circle who are on the same path that I'm on. And when you let go of what doesn't serve you, it opens up the door for what does.
How does your daughter feel about the transformation?
Yeah, so she's so young because she's like 3. I don't think she gets it yet, but this was really sweet. We had a play date a couple of months ago, and she was sitting at the table with these 2 other little kids, and she said, "My mommy goes to the gym every day to work out." And that warmed my heart because I was never a big, I was athletic, but I never really had a routine. I'd go to the gym, but I never really made it a big part of my life, except for my wedding, right? Everyone does that to get ready for the wedding and then forget it and then we're done. And so I felt really proud that I was setting that example, that is a norm. Like, she knows that mama goes to the gym every morning after I drop her off from school. And so I'm instilling that in her, that this is a part of what we do every day. because I don't know about you, but my parents weren't getting up and going to the gym every day.
Nope.
You know, so it's nice that she's able to see this. She was too young to know the other side, and now she's seeing, we're growing together almost, you know? We're kind of creating habits and building healthy habits together, which is nice.
And now that you're in a better headspace, being more healthy, how has that impacted your career?
Oh my God, it's like, I feel like I'm in a different world. I think back to where I was 3 years ago, and you know, I say to people sometimes, like 3 years ago, I was a retail store manager, married in a, you know, with a white picket fence in the cul-de-sac neighborhood. And that's definitely not my story now. But part of the success I've seen, I think, I'll bring it back for a sec. I was told for a long time by a few people in the industry that me sharing my journey so openly with my struggles, whether it be like my divorce, my sobriety, my weight loss, that people would never hire me to sell a house. People would never want to work with me, that I was being too vulnerable and showing them that I was weak. And I truly felt that that was not the case. I felt called very much to share. I felt that people needed to see that everybody's a human being and you go through stuff. And simultaneously, while I was going through that stuff, I was still closing deals and getting deals done. And as I progressed physically and mentally and emotionally, my business grew while I grew. And that translated in a big way on social media. I've been very grateful for social media that I've been able to share as much as I have to show people that correlation. And now I get messages from people every week, you know, hey, I'm thinking about going, you know, separating from my partner, or we're going through a divorce. We need somebody who's been through it. We need somebody who knows what they're doing. Hey, you know, I'm struggling with weight loss. I saw your journey. You know, what did you do? Oh, by the way, my cousin's looking to buy a house. I gave them your name. And so I understand the fear that people have, and I often remind myself that when they tell me not to do something, it's because they can't picture themselves doing it. They're too scared to put themselves out there like that, and so they want to protect me, right? Don't share your story, you know, show the perfect side. That's not professional. And I just have a different idea of what that looks like for me, and it's worked. I'm fortunate. I'm glad I was right and they were wrong. But it was a chance that I took because I felt very strongly in my gut and my intuition, and I've learned to listen to that. And sobriety has helped me with that. You can hear those voices in your head more clearly when there isn't something interrupting it. And that was, you know, this last year, I think tomorrow is closing number 25 in the last 12 months. And, you know, like to go from last year, I was eating ramen noodles every night and shopping for groceries at the dollar store. It's a big change, you know, to go from that to this, but it can change that quickly if you make the decision that, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to solely focus on taking care of myself, my priorities, and one of those priorities is my business. This is what we're doing.
What do you think gave you, you know, besides you saying, hey, I had that calling, what else gave you that strength to do it when we all get worried? I say we all, but
Yeah.
A lot of people get worried about what people think. Did you ever have that? Did you ever have any shame or fear?
Oh yeah. So last year I got myself into a bit of a position, got myself involved in a relationship that was really kind of the old Connie, I think, holding on to the parts of her that I wasn't ready to let go of. And because of that, I got involved in a relationship that was very unhealthy. It happened very quickly, and I didn't take the time to see what this person was really about. And because I got so wrapped up in that, I really lost sight of my business and my finances. And I got to a point where I had 40 days left. You and I were doing a transaction at that point. I had 40 days left until my bank account was at zero, and I had nothing left. And the amount of shame I felt in that moment, because here I am with this opportunity in front of me to do all of these things that I've said that I'm going to do. And I had this coming, you know, this coming to Jesus moment of, you are only failing because you are not trying hard enough. You're expecting it to happen for you. And that's not the case. You're making good decisions, but you're still holding on to this old life that you don't want to let go of, whether that's fear of being alone or fear of failing or fear of putting yourself completely out there. And so I had a lot of shame about the fact that I wasn't really giving it my all, even though some days I thought I was, but my bank account was telling me a different story. And I don't want anyone to get to rock bottom to make the changes that I had to make. But for me, that was a rock bottom moment where in 45 days, you can't pay your mortgage, you can't put food on the table for your kid, you are going to lose everything you've worked for, you're going to have to make that call to go back to your old job and go back to your old life, and then it's done. And so I took that shame and that fear and I almost put it into like a ball of energy and said, okay, if I sit here every day and feel ashamed and feel scared, that's energy that I'm not putting towards anything. I'm just holding on to it and I'm letting it sit on me and keep me heavy. So it was as if I took it and made it a ball and said, okay, how far can we throw this? Like, how can we use this to fuel us forward? And so I came up, with a plan, and that plan was, it started off every day with, I was waking up every day with a jolt anyways, because the anxiety was it was just so prevalent. So that jolt that I would wake up with every day, well, I would hop on, I ordered a stepper, and I just started doing 30 minutes of a Stairmaster at my house, just to get that energy going. And then while doing that, I was listening to a podcast or an audio book about building a business, not even real estate specific, really just how do you build a business? How do you create a brand? And so every day I just added in a little, or every couple of days, we would add in a new habit or something that was going to help propel us forward. And then 6 months later, those were all just a natural part of my day. But that 45 days was a lot of shame, a lot of fear, and that lasted for about 6 months until I could finally come out of that and feel like, okay, we're safe now. But I think that lack of safety is really like what the fear is, that feeling like you're not safe, right? But I don't recommend anyone to go to rock bottom before you figure that out. It's a hard way to do it. You can do it before then.
It is. Do you feel like now you love yourself?
I love myself so much, and I still have my moments where I have to figure out where there's still that lack of self-love. And I find that a lot, I think for me, to be so transparent, it comes out for me when I'm in the dating world, and there's certain things that happen that I'm like, we love ourselves too much to accept that right now, but this would have been completely okay 6 months ago or a year ago or 5 years ago. So I think my biggest challenge is learning how to love myself enough to say being lonely is okay, settling is not. But I am so proud of who I am now, but I'm really proud of the girl that got me here, right? Like, I'm proud of her, even though she wasn't making all the right choices and doing all the right things every day. Like, she believed so much that this was possible. And so now that love is kind of it's almost like fuel every day, because there's another version of Connie I see 5 years from now that I've got a vision for, that I'm like, well, if we can get from that to this, well, we can certainly get from this to that.
For sure. And you've also jumped into podcasting.
I have, yep. Reclaim. No One Is Coming to Save You. We're on YouTube, and my partner Melissa Harrison and I just started this, and it's gotten some really great feedback, which is nice to hear. It's so scary to put yourself out there. And it seems like there's a place, though, right now in the world for this overwhelming sense of vulnerability to say, look, if you don't have it all figured out, that's okay, because guess what? 90% of us don't. And one of the biggest things that people would say to me when I finally came out and said I was getting divorced, because it was like 6 months. We were 6 months into the process. House was sold, everything was done, and then it was, oh, hey guys, by the way, I'm getting divorced. The first thing people would say to me was, but you looked so happy on Instagram. And then they would, like, before the words even came out, they would say, oh, you looked so happy on Instagram. Yeah, because that's the story that we tell our, and it wasn't like a lie. I was very much kind of curating a story that I needed to believe in as well, that we were that happy. And I think there's a lot of people out there that have struggled because they feel they see everyone living these lives that look so wonderful and beautiful, but it's a curated version of our life. It's not the real thing. And even as vulnerable as I am on the internet, it's not my whole story. Could never be, right? There's certain things that I'm always going to keep, private or, just until I write that book someday when everyone's dead. Okay, 50 years from now we can tell the whole story. But there is this overwhelming need that I'm finding, and the feedback I'm getting, that people just need to know they're not alone, and women especially. They need to know that we have been asked to do a lot and to put a lot on our plates and to be everybody's savior, and nobody taught us how to just be our own savior at the end of the day.
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of women aren't as open with each other or can be catty?
Yeah, I was brought up that the most important thing to worry about is what other people think about you. That was a big part of my being brought up. So I'm sure it's part of what other people were brought up to believe too. And when you focus solely on what the external thinks about you, and you have no concern as to what you think about you, then everything becomes about appearances. What bag do I have? What shoes are my kids in? What school are they going to? What vacations are we planning? What car do we drive? And when you start to strip away all those layers and figure out who we are at our core, so many of us have the same struggles, whether your bank account has 6 figures in it or it's got 3 figures in it. Some of us have 2, there becomes this, oh wow, we're all playing the same game. We just feel like we're on different teams, but we're not. We're all really just in the same game with different t-shirts on. And until you start to have those conversations and figure that out, we can't connect. That's why I think vulnerability is so important, because it allows you to connect in a way that appearances and showcasing do not.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, your journey of being vulnerable has made such an impact on me, and I hope that it makes an impact on all the viewers that got an opportunity to watch this. I'm Suzanne Caldera, and this is Money and Impact. Thanks for watching.